Good evening. I'm Pam Thomas, the coordinator for the Northern Virginia and DC chapter of CHAD, and I want to welcome you to our March lecture, The Impact of a Disability on the Entire Family, Supporting Siblings, presented by Abigail Merrill, founder and director of Sibling Strong. Many of you are familiar with CHAD and our chapter, but for those of you who are new to CHAD, first let me say welcome. Our chapter's mission aligns with CHAD National's mission, which is to improve the lives of children and adults who are affected by ADHD. Our chapter is a volunteer organization of trained professionals who offer support to our ADHD community by providing free monthly lectures, offer support groups for parents and adults, and host an annual ADHD resource fair in October to highlight ADHD Awareness Month. And now to introduce our speaker. Abigail Merrill is a high school senior dedicated to raising awareness and advocating for children with disabled siblings. She is the founder and director of Sibling Strong, a 501c3 nonprofit that supports and empowers these siblings, helping them navigate complex feelings. We're going to be showing a pre-recorded presentation by Ms. Merrill, followed by a live Q&A. So if you would, please type your questions and comments into the chat so that our Q&A moderator can address them with Ms. Merrill after the presentation. And thank you for being here today.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me today at CHAD. My name is Abigail, and I am the founder and director of Sibling Strong, a nonprofit devoted to supporting and empowering siblings of children who have disabilities or just require more attention due to uncontrolled circumstances. Before I dive into the core of today's talk, I wanted to share a piece of my story. Recently, I turned 18 years old and was completely bombarded with all the exciting new things I was able to do as an adult. This list included, but was not limited to, buying a lottery ticket, voting in the next election, and even going skydiving without a parent's signature. But no matter what the activity was, a common theme I discovered when grouping all these activities together was independence and maturity. Oftentimes, talking to friends, seeing popular television shows, or even discussing with my parents, people recall their 18th birthday as the start of their independence and emotional maturity. They get to go out on their own and make mostly their own decisions. They finally satisfy the biggest teenage craving, adult responsibility. But for me, turning 18 didn't feel like anything special. Growing up, my older sister was diagnosed with golden horse syndrome. She was born without a jaw, and over the years, she has undergone more than 70 surgeries. As you can imagine, this left very little wiggle room for me to act as her sibling, anything less than an adult. From the ripe age of 5, I overheard serious conversations between my parents regarding my sister's medical care. By 7, I was one of her caregivers myself, changing bandages and helping to feed her. By 12, I had reached the highest level of adult responsibility. And no, it was not paying taxes or buying my first home. It was being involved in decisions regarding her treatments and her care. My sister's bravery and resilience have always inspired me. She taught me the true meaning of unconditional love, heartbreak, and gratitude. I would not be the person that I am today without her. But there was another story of resilience unfolding in the background, my story as her sibling. Today I'm here because I want to shed light on the hidden world of siblings. I want to empower everyone, whether you're a parent, an educator, or professional, to see and support the siblings in your life. So starting off today, before I dive into more of what the sibling experience looks like, I want to share a quote from the American Psychological Association. So the American Psychological Association has researched the influence of siblings on our lives for decades. From their findings, they showed that growing up, siblings play a crucial role in each other's lives. Amidst the good times and the hard times, siblings are essentially built-in best friends. Having a brother or a sister is a lifelong journey. Now, whether you're a sibling or not, I'm sure you are aware of the common experiences siblings share. From fights, like arguing over the TV remote, to giving a toast at your sibling's wedding. Siblings are together through good times and bad, whether they want to be or not. But this journey becomes a bit more intense when your sibling requires more attention. There are such unique complexities that come along with living in a household with an individual who has disabilities. This experience is more common than most people may think. Among the 6 million people in the United States who have disabilities, most of them have at least one sibling. So let's talk about what it really means to be a sibling in a family facing the challenges of a disability. Now, when I think about it, thinking back to English class and learning about all different parts of figurative language, I can describe growing up in such a family affected by a disability as one word, a very unique paradox. On one hand, there is immense love and pride. We see our siblings' courage firsthand and learn the true lessons of compassion and perseverance. While on the other hand, we often shoulder responsibilities far beyond our years, and sometimes even our own needs are overlooked. Thinking back into my childhood, growing up, I remember spending countless hours as a child sitting in hospital lobbies, just waiting for my parents to get an appointment, waiting for doctor's results, waiting for my dad to pick me up, waiting for a friend to drive me home from sport. And now it is important to note that due to the severity of my sister's condition, my parents' attention had to be on her care at all time, whether it was talking to doctors, discussing treatment plans, and making important medical decisions. It took me a while to understand why their attention was on her, but eventually, understanding the severity of her care, I understood. But as I sat there, no matter my understanding, I couldn't help but wonder, do I matter too? For many siblings, like me, this feeling becomes second nature. We learn to push our emotions back and stay quiet to not add to the weight of our families that are already carrying so much on their backs. Over time, we become experts at hiding our pain, our doubts, and even our needs. We tell ourselves that our struggles are small in comparison to what our sibling is going through. For me, in my own sibling experience, I have encountered these feelings time and time again. But along with everything in life, a family's uniqueness varies, depending on different circumstances like the number of children in a family, severity of a diagnosis, and living conditions can all affect the sibling experience, which I cannot stress enough. But in my role in founding and directing a nonprofit for these siblings who have a disabled sibling, I have had the opportunity to talk to countless of siblings worldwide, whether it's East Coast, West Coast. I've had conversations sharing our common experiences. And I have discovered throughout these conversations that at least every sibling at one point in their life experiences one of these 4 feelings that I'm about to share with you today. They include loneliness, guilt, love, and responsibility. But in order to determine what combination of feelings your sibling is experiencing, it is super important to ask them rather than assuming that they experience all or none. So let's dive into what these 4 major sibling emotions look like. So the first one, and my personal favorite emotion, is love. Now, love comes in all different terms, whether it's a romantic partner, it's a family member, a friend, everyone feels love. Love is all around us. But there's a certain type of love between siblings. Now, when I think back on my experience and my bond with my sibling, it is so strong. And it feels so much deeper than all other amounts of love I have felt in my life. And I'm still very young, but this bond is hard to describe. As a sibling, we don't just love our sibling, we feel an instinct to protect them. Whether it's things like standing up for them when others don't understand, or making sure that they're included in everyday life. We take on the role as their biggest supporter. This love is super powerful, but it also comes with a sense of responsibility that most kids don't have to think about. Well, an example that I use for this is when I was younger, going out in public with my sister was a whole different experience than going out in public with my parents, my friends, or even my extended family, my cousins and their siblings. And what I mean by this is a lot of times after my sister would have surgery, she'd be in a wheelchair and she had a feeding tube. So a lot of the times when I was focused in being out like at the mall or at a store, I was so focused in on what other people were seeing of my sister, if they were giving her judgmental stares or whatever they were doing. And this is not something in a sibling combination that's not affected by a disability or a sibling who requires more attention has to think about. Now, the next emotion that I want to talk more about is responsibility. And this is, I think, above every emotion, I would say this is the number one that I see and that I have also felt. So from a young age, many of us take on caregiving roles that usually belong to adults. We help with medical tasks, assist with daily routines, and sometimes even step in to comfort our siblings when things get especially tough. While these experiences teach us empathy and resilience, they can also make us grow up faster than we really should. Instead of just being a kid, we become helpers, planners, and caretakers, sometimes before we're even old enough to understand what that really means. And I know I just talked about this previously with sharing my experience, is that taking on this responsibility is something that I often looked forward to and something that I wanted to do to help support my family, my friends, and especially my parents. And it is something that I truly enjoyed until I realized how much it was stopping me from doing other paths in my life. And not because the responsibility is something that I had to do, it's something that I felt like I needed to do, which turns us into our next feeling, which is guilt. And this is one of the hardest emotions to talk about and describe. So when I often share about this emotion, I use an example to put it in perspective. So imagine you're at a big family dinner and everyone gathered around is celebrating your siblings' achievements. Maybe they overcame a huge medical hurdle or they had a good day despite the challenges that they face. Regardless of what you may feel, you're overwhelmingly proud of them because you love them. But at the same time, a small voice inside your head whispers, what about me? Maybe that day you got a good grade on a math test or you made a winning shot in the game, but it feels insignificant in comparison. So you stay quiet. You just swallow the feeling because it seems selfish to want attention when your sibling is going through so much. And then, in addition to this guilt, there is another kind of guilt. The guilt that comes when you realize the things you get to do are things that your sibling maybe cannot do. Maybe you're running around with friends. Well, your sibling's in physical therapy. Maybe you're staying after school for a club while they're at another doctor's appointment. It's not your fault. And as a sibling, we know that, but it still hurts. It feels unfair in a way that I can physically put into words. Growing up, I remember being invited to birthday parties, going to summer camp, and trying sports teams. But sometimes I couldn't even enjoy them because I truly felt so guilty. How could I be the one having fun when at home my sibling was dealing with things I'd never even have to face? Sometimes this guilt was so overwhelming that I just opted out of the activities, convincing myself that I didn't need to do these things. I wouldn't have to feel bad about them. But the hardest part of all these different types of feelings of guilt is no one ever tells you it's okay to feel this way. No one tells you that having attention, fairness, or even just a break from the weight of it doesn't mean you love your sibling any less. The guilt is heavy as a sibling, but it doesn't mean our feelings aren't valid. It just means that we truly care. And transitioning into the last feeling that I have pinpointed today is loneliness. And thinking back onto my childhood, especially and how in and out my sister was out of the hospital. I always had so many family members, extended family, all there trying to support our family. And there were times when my house was jam-packed full of people, but I still felt alone. It's hard to talk about these emotions with family and friends because our experiences differ so much from them. And it really sometimes feels like no one can really understand. Obviously, we don't want to burden our parents because they are going through so much, taking care of our sibling, taking care of a household, having a job, and trying to take care of us, and sometimes managing and to take time to take care of themselves. So oftentimes we keep things quiet. We might not talk about the times we feel left out or in the moments we struggled because we think no one would truly get it. Over time, this loneliness can grow, making us feel like we have to navigate these challenges on our own. Now, I know that I'm only 18 years old, and I have just given you so much information about major sibling emotions, and there may be a cloud of doubt in your mind, being like, does this person really know what they're talking about? And I can attest to you that I do. Now, in addition to my work with Sibling Strong, I am an internship student with the Children's Craniofacial Association located in Dallas, Texas, abbreviated to CCA. And through this, CCA is a nonprofit that empowers and strengthens children, adults, and families that are affected by facial difference, which coincidentally is what my sister is affected by. So through my internship with them, I employ research. I had the opportunity to be on panels and webinars, just trying to expand their resource library for siblings within their nonprofit because they do make a significant impact to try and assist families and parents. But it really helps when we're trying to pinpoint a sibling perspective to have a sibling come help you do it. So in the beginning of my internship, I did a research survey going out to around 60 adults ranging from age 12 to age 30 to 40, just kind of assessing their feelings of being a sibling to someone that has a disability. And in this survey, I asked about 10, 15 questions, but I pulled out two of the questions that I really felt validated all these major sibling emotions. So the first question I asked was, how often, if ever, do you feel overlooked that your needs come second because of your siblings' needs? And each section of this chart represents a different level of frequency at which responders experience feelings of being overlooked. This chart is divided into 5 categories, each labeled with the corresponding percentage of people who selected that response. So the largest group we have on this chart is the dark purple section labeled sometimes, and that is 40.9%. And this suggests that nearly half of siblings feel overlooked on occasion, but not all the time. They may not feel constantly forgotten, but they still have moments of guilt when they desire attention. Now, moving on to the second group in the chart, which is the slightly lighter purple section labeled always. And the one next to it, slightly lighter labeled usually. And this is the section of the most impacted siblings, totaling to be 36.4%. And this showed that over 1/3 of responders feel frequently or always overlooked, meaning their siblings' needs almost always come first. This section really aligns with the responsibility that they carry. Many of these siblings take on roles spanning their years, helping with medical care and daily routines, or advocating for their sibling. It also ties into the feeling of loneliness. When siblings feel constantly overlooked, they may internalize their emotions, believing no one will understand their struggles. Moving on to the slightly lighter purple section, labeled rarely with 13.6% of siblings who feel considered most of the time. And this is a smaller group of siblings that feel this way once in a while, suggesting that their families have worked to create balance and work to implement support strategies. And this group still might experience guilt or moments of loneliness, but their families may have found a way to ensure that they feel validated and included the best that they can. And then moving on to the smallest group, the shade of the lightest purple, which is 9.1%, and this is the never group. And these are the siblings who never feel overlooked, meaning that their families have likely created an environment where both their needs and siblings' needs are balanced. But kind of to take this into perspective, is that 77.3% of siblings feel overlooked at least sometimes, showing that this is such a widespread experience. The always and usually groups, which is 36.4%, indicate that many siblings feel like their needs are consistently put on second. This could lead to effects like resentment, emotional exhaustion, or even a loss of personal identity if not addressed. And this data just truly reinforces and acknowledges why supporting siblings is so important. And if parents, educators, and support systems recognize these emotions, they can create spaces for siblings to feel heard and valid. So this was the first question. And the second question that I want to transition to is one more about support, less about siblings' feelings. And this question reads, do you have access to someone who understands what you're going through in a formal setting? Example, a teacher, a counselor, or even a support group. And this visually breaks down how many siblings of children with disabilities feel like they have a formal support from professionals or structured groups. So kind of breaking down these responses, the darkest section of purple is the no group, and it is 45.5%. And nearly the respondents think that they do not have access to someone in a formal understanding who understands their experience. This means that many siblings feel they lack proper support from teachers, counselors, or structured support groups. This could contribute to feelings of loneliness as they might not have a safe space to express their emotions. Moving on to the slightly lighter purple section labeled sometimes. This is 31.8%. And almost 1/3 of responders have inconsistent access to a formal support. This means while they may occasionally have a teacher or counselor who listens, they don't always truly feel understood or regularly supported. When I think about this group, I feel like this group can regularly struggle with guilt. They know they have some support, but may still hesitate to reach out or feel that it's not enough. And then moving on to the smallest section and the lightest section in the purple shade, it is the yes section. It is 22.7%. And this shows that less than 1/4 of respondents say they fully have access to a formal support system. These individuals likely benefit from counselors, sibling support groups, or understanding teachers who provide a safe space to share their emotions. And due to this, they may feel less validated and less alone. And it can help with emotional well-being. And This chart just really highlights the major issues that most siblings of children with disabilities, 77.3%, either have no formal support or only sometimes have it. This lack of consistent support can worsen feelings of loneliness, guilt, and emotional burden in these siblings. And the fact that almost half the respondents, 45.5%, don't have any formal support at all is really concerning. These siblings may bottle up their emotions, leading to long-term emotional struggles. So the final takeaway from this chart is that it reinforces the need for better sibling support systems. Without consistent access to understanding professionals or groups, many siblings are left feeling unseen, alone, and without a safe space to share their feelings. Addressing these issues can make a huge difference in the mental and emotional well-being of these siblings. So next, I wanted to talk a lot about the strength of siblings, as I just harped a lot about some possible challenges growing up with a sibling that requires more attention. I do not want to lose sight of these incredible strengths of siblings. While being a sibling of someone with a disability or someone who requires more attention isn't always easy, but it also brings some of the most meaningful experiences in life. It shapes who we are in ways we may not fully realize at first. The love, lessons, and perspective we gain are things that many people don't learn until much later in life, and sometimes not at all. The list of perspectives is ongoing. I could probably sit here for hours and hours and hours every night just naming off different positives and different perspectives that I've gained in my sibling experience. But for time's sake and everyone's well-being, I have selected the ones that I have found most empowering in my sibling experience. So the first one I want to talk more about, I touched on this in the 4 major sibling experiences, is the bond. The bond that siblings have in this unique family situation is like no other. Talking more about this, the connection we have with our sibling is built on trust, it is built on patience, and also just a deep understanding. We see their struggles firsthand and can celebrate their victories, no matter how small. Every milestone just means so much more because we know how hard they work to get there. Now, looking back in my sibling experience, my sibling, just to recap, was born missing her jaw. So this led difficulties for her to eat, for her to breathe, and for her to talk. And I remember around surgery number 50, when my sister got prosthetic TMJ joints in her jaw, she, after a long couple months of recovery, she was finally able to eat her first piece of meat, chicken. And in our family, that moment wasn't just a small moment, like us eating dinner and we're all eating dinner. That's kind of a regular moment. For our family, we celebrated from phone calls from extended family. That kind of love is so unbreakable, and it teaches us to value people for who they are, not just what they can do and what they can provide. Now, another perspective that I wanted to share is the empathy that siblings gain. Growing up alongside a sibling with a disability, it makes us so much more compassionate and aware of others' emotions. We learn to be patient, we learn to listen, and to recognize when someone needs support. These skills help us in every single part of life, at school, in work, and in our friendships. Many of us naturally look out for people who feel left out or unheard because we know what that's like. It's no surprise that so many of us siblings receive awards for kindness, compassion, and hard work for school. Now, when I think about my empathy from being a sibling, I think about just one experience. It was last summer, and I was in on a family vacation with all my little cousins. And we're all sitting down at the kitchen table before we head down to the beach. And they all want to play apples to apples. And if anyone is not familiar with the game, it is basically a game where one person picks up a card and it reads a prompt. And all the other people who are playing in the group pick up a card with an example. And whoever the person with the prompt is the judge. And each person takes their turn and puts their card on the leaders. And the leader gets to judge and decide whose experience or whose example makes the most sense with their prompt. And I kid you not, I was able to read all my little cousins so well from knowing sibling experiences and knowing all this intricate details of life that almost every time I got the judge to pick my experience or example. And it may sound silly, but this is just one of the many perspectives and one of the many strengths that just kind of play into everyday life and such simple aspects of just having a sibling with a disability that not many people know about. Now, moving on to another perspective is how resilient and how strong we are. Many of us as siblings deal with things that most kids never have to think about. Hospital, therapy sessions, and unexpected obstacles. From a young age, when my sister was having surgery, I had to think about all these abstract components of life. Like, what if my sister didn't wake up from the surgery? What if the surgery didn't go as expected? But instead of having all these experiences and all these obstacles break us, these experiences make us so much stronger. We adapt, push forward, and find creative solutions when things don't go as planned. That kind of resilience stays with us forever. When life throws challenges our way, we don't back down. We face them head on because we have been doing it since we have been young. And moving on to another strength is just one that I've kind of touched on within every single one of these examples, but it's just a new perspective on life. Having a sibling with a disability changes how we see the world, truly. We don't take the little things for granted. We learn to celebrate small moments of joy and recognize that success looks different for everyone. This perspective helps us appreciate life in a way many people don't. We know that true strength isn't just about physical ability, it's about determination, courage, and heart. Also, having a sibling with a disability or one that requires more attention makes us natural leaders and born advocates. Growing up, we take on responsibilities that make us mature so much faster. We learn to speak up for our siblings, handle challenges, and make sure others feel valued. Because of this, many of us siblings step into leadership roles, whether we go into advocacy, healthcare, education, or something else entirely. These skills stay with us forever. We stand up for what's right and help those who need it. It's not because we have to, it's because it's who we are as siblings and as people. And I have saved the best perspective and strength for last: gratitude. At the end of the day, being a sibling of someone with a disability or who requires more attention teaches us gratitude for the little things, for the people who support us, and the love we share within our families. It reminds us that strength isn't about doing everything alone. It's about lifting each other up and doing it together. So yes, at the end of the day, there are challenges, but there are so many gifts. And given the choice to go back, I wouldn't trade being my sister's sibling for anything. Now, with everything in life, when there are good, there are challenges. And it would not be fair to myself or any other siblings today to just disclose the positives. But in order to gain all the incredible strengths and perspectives we just talked about, you have to go through and battle the challenges. Most, if not all, these challenges are embeddable with these types of family dynamics. It is so important to acknowledge these feelings as it could help lessen the impact of the sibling. Before I get into the specifics, I really want to take a minute and really emphasize why support for sibling truly matters. When siblings and children with disabilities, or ones that require more attention, don't receive the support they need, they can feel invisible, overwhelmed, or even resentful. They may start to believe that their needs don't matter so much because all attention is focused on their sibling. Over time, this can lead to serious emotional struggles, unhealthy coping mechanisms, and long-term difficulties within their personal lives. So, what happens when siblings are left to handle everything alone? 1. Emotional burnout and mental struggles. According to a study and a report from The Ohio State University, only 74.3% of parents describe the mental health of siblings of children with disabilities as excellent or very good, compared to 81.9% for siblings of typically developing children. This shows that many siblings of disabled children grow faster, feeling emotionally drained. Without support, they are at higher risk of anxiety, depression, and feelings of worthlessness. Some feel that they have to be the perfect sibling to earn attention, while others may act out because they believe no one truly cares about them. 2. Risky behavior and rebellion. Some siblings turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms like drinking, drug use, or unhealthy relationships to deal with their frustration and loneliness. Since they often feel ignored, they may seek attention in the wrong places, even from people who don't have their best interests at heart. 3. Struggles with identity and self-worth. If no one acknowledges their feelings, these siblings may grow up believing that their only value comes from helping others. They may struggle with finding their own identity or knowing what they truly want in life, since they've always put their siblings' needs first. 4. One that I really want to emphasize: higher risk of abusive relationships. Without proper support, many siblings struggle to set proper, appropriate, healthy boundaries within relationships. Since they are so used to prioritizing others over themselves, they can become easy targets for people who take advantage of them. This increases the risk of being in unhealthy or abusive relationships, where they continue to feel unheard and emotionally drained. And this, I don't want to say that every sibling experience leads to this outcome, but some do. And it's really important to be aware of the possible outcomes in order to help your sibling. And 5, difficult family relationships. Some children may pull away from their families completely because they have felt neglected for too long. Others stay but carry deep resentment, leading to years of unresolved tension and pain. Without balance, family relationships can sever, making it hard to rebuild trust later in life. So, recapping, a little support can make all the difference in helping these children grow into confident, emotionally healthy adults, instead of carrying lifelong struggles that could have been prevented. When siblings feel acknowledged, they thrive. So now that we've touched a lot about the challenges, the strengths, and the emotions of siblings, I want to talk about specific roles and how these roles and emotions shape their roles within the family. When a child has a disability, their siblings may take on roles that influence their identity and emotional well-being. Many of us naturally fall into these certain patterns of behavior, whether consciously or unconsciously, as a way to navigate unique experiences. These roles help siblings cope, but they can also bring challenges. So today, there are many roles, but I'm gonna dive into the three most common roles that siblings with disabilities or ones that require more attention may often step into. One, the glass child. Two, the super sib. And three, they may experience well-being syndrome. Each of these roles reflect a different emotional response to growing up in a family where one sibling requires extra attentions. Some siblings may feel invisible and unheard, a glass child. Some overachieve to compensate, a super sib. And others suppress their emotions and convince themselves they always are okay, well-being syndrome. Understanding these roles and where a sibling falls into can help us better provide support and recognition for these siblings. So first, we're going to dive into what it means to be a glass child. So a glass child is really a metaphor for a child that is like glass. And using the term glass, it doesn't mean that this child is weak or fragile. It means that they feel invisible. They feel seen through, like you can see through glass, as people look right through them. In families where one child has a disability, most of the attention naturally goes to that child's medical needs, their therapy appointments, and daily care. Parents have to spend a lot of time at the hospitals, talking to doctors, or handling challenges related to their child's disability or their care. Because of this, their siblings may feel like they are in the background, even though they also have their own emotion struggles and needs. So why do glass children feel this way? Many glass children learn to hide their feelings because they don't want to add extra stress to their parents. They see how much their family is going through and may feel like their problems aren't big enough to mention. Instead, they stay quiet, try to be helpful, and take care of things on their own. And adults, like parents and teachers, may assume that they're just doing fine because they don't complain or cause trouble. But just because a child isn't showing emotions does not mean they're not feeling them. Over time, glass children may start to believe their feelings don't matter as much as their siblings, which can lead to sadness, frustration, or even guilt for wanting attention. Secondly, what is well-being syndrome? So I recently discovered well-being syndrome reading an article from Case Western University. And many siblings of disabilities or ones that require more attention experience something called the well-being syndrome. The feeling that they need to be the easy child or the one who is always doing okay. This doesn't mean someone told them they had to be this way, but over time they start to believe that their role in the family is to be low maintenance. So why does this happen? In families where a lot of attention is focused on the child with disability, siblings often pick up on unspoken expectations. They see their parents juggling doctor's appointments, therapy sessions, and other responsibilities, and they don't want to add to the stress. Without realizing, they may start avoiding, complaining, even when something is bothering them, handling their struggles alone instead of asking for help, taking on extra responsibilities at home to make things easier for their parents, and feeling like they always need to be independent and strong. Over time, this pattern becomes more second nature. No one has to say, you have to be the easy child. Siblings just absorb that this is the way that they should be. So let's talk about the impact. At first, this seems like a positive, great feeling. Not experiencing bad emotions, that's great. Everyone wants not to have to go through anxiety, stress, and sadness. And through this, many siblings develop strong independence, self-reliance, and responsibility. They often do very well in school, take leadership roles, and appear to have everything under control. But like everything, no one is always having everything under control. And over time, even though they seem fine, siblings with well-being syndrome may feel overwhelmed from constantly managing things alone, emotionally exhausted from always being the strong one, and disconnected from their own feelings because they have spent so much time putting others first. Because they're used to being independent, it can be hard to ask for help. When you've always been the one who's fine, admitting that you're struggling can feel very uncomfortable or even terrifying. The third role is what is a super sibling? A super siblings may feel the need to overachieve. They take on extra responsibilities and they're always the best at everything. Many take on leadership roles, work hard in school, and become the helper in their family. They often feel a deep sense of purpose in supporting their sibling, but also face intense pressure. Super siblings may feel like they only have to be perfect, carrying the weight of their family on their shoulders. While their work ethic and empathy are such strengths, it is important to remember that perfection in life isn't the only goal. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to deal with feelings of anxiety, stress, and loneliness. You don't have to hide those feelings. Now, I have just described these three identities. And even though these three identities aren't psychological diagnoses, it's important to remember that these aren't fixed. They are fluid and can change over time. Many siblings move between these identities at different points in their journey, shaped by their experiences, personal growths, and the evolving needs of their family. You may feel like the last child when you're younger, struggling with feeling unseen or overlooked by your siblings' medical or developmental needs. As you grow older, you might experience well-being syndrome, where you put pressure on yourself to be strong, responsible, and self-sufficient to avoid adding extra stress to your family. And later, you may step into the super sib role, embracing advocacy, leadership, and support for your sibling and others in similar situations. For some, these identities overlap. You may feel a little bit of all three at once, at the same time, or shift between them based on life circumstances. A major life event, such as a sibling's health crisis, moving away for college, or getting a deeper understanding of your family's dynamics, can bring about these shifts very unexpectedly. Now, none of these identities are inherently good or bad. They're simply just ways siblings make sense of their experiences that highlight emotional complexity of growing up in a family where disability is the central part of life. Each role carries its own challenges, but also its own unique strengths. Glass children often develop empathy and heightened awareness of each other's needs. Those experiencing well-being syndrome demonstrate resilience, adaptability, and an incredible sense of responsibility. Super siblings use their experiences to create challenges, advocate for inclusion, and build meaningful connections with each other. Now, that we've explored what it's like to be a child with a sibling with a disability or one that requires more care, let's focus on something even more important. The reason we are all here today. How do we support them? Giving you a statistic, 1 in 5 children has a sibling with a disability or chronic illness, yet few resources focus on their unique needs. Many people assume that siblings are doing fine because they seem independent, strong, or well adjusted to life. But the reality is, they need just as much recognition, emotional support, and encouragement as everyone else does. The first and most important way, and the most affordable and accessible, is to acknowledge their feelings and what they're going through. Many of these siblings feel invisible, as if their emotions don't matter as much as their siblings' needs. A simple check-in can go a long way with your sibling. Instead of just asking, "How are you?" in passing, it's important to ask them deeper, like, "How are you really feeling?" Or "What has been hard for you lately?" These questions open the door for honest communications and make siblings feel seen. Beyond checking in, it's essential to validate their experiences. They should share that what they do in their family matters, whether it's helping out, supporting their siblings, or just being there. Many siblings struggle with emotions like frustration, guilt, or even resentment. They should hear what they do in their family matters. And they also struggle with many comments like, "Don't feel that way." They need to hear, "It makes sense that you feel that way. It's okay to talk about." Simply recognizing their experiences and making space for their emotions can be such a powerful way to step towards helping them feel validated. Another key way to support siblings is just making time for them. Siblings often feel like they have to take a backseat because there's so much attention directed towards their brother or sister's medical or developmental needs. That's why it's so important to create time where they get to be the focus, even for just a few minutes. For parents, this may seem just spending one-on-one time with each child, whether it's grabbing ice cream, going for a short walk, or having a conversation before bed. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture like a vacation or a lavish day, just an intentional time where they feel prioritized. Teachers and professionals can also play a role in recognizing these siblings in school, acknowledging their hard work, and checking in privately if they notice signs that they might need a little support. Friends and extended family can help by celebrating the siblings' achievements and milestones, not just of those of their brother or sister with a disability. Siblings don't need hours and hours of attention. They just need to feel like they're seen and valued as individuals. Looking back on my childhood, I remember my favorite experiences where I felt validated and seen was going on a bike ride with my dad. There would be 10 minutes, just a short way around our neighborhood, and we would just talk about my life and what was going on, and if I was feeling anything. These are such great ways to help make sure your siblings feel support. Now, it is really hard to create these safe spaces and have your children open up to you. Because many siblings have their emotions so bottled up with locks and layers because they don't want to add stress to their family. Creating a safe space where they feel comfortable expressing their feelings is so important. It is so important to normalize their feelings and remind them that it's okay to have mixed feelings. Love, frustration, and guilt, and even resentment are all part of their experience. They're part of everyone's experience growing up in this society. They need to feel like they have a safe space to talk, whether it's with a parent, a friend, a teacher, or a counselor. Letting them share without a fear of judgment is so important. Instead of dismissing their concerns, we should validate them with responses like, I understand why you're feeling that way. That must be really tough. When I was younger, I always didn't feel comfortable sharing my struggles because I didn't want to make things harder for my family. But imagine if had someone taken the time to ask me, how are you really doing? That simple act of listening can be so life-changing. Another way to support siblings is by encouraging them to pursue their own interests and goals. Many siblings put their own dreams aside, either because they feel like their role is to support their family, or because they don't want to take any attention away from their siblings who need it in order to thrive. We need to remind them that their goals and passions matter too, encouraging them to engage in hobbies and activities they love, whether it's sports, music, art, or something else, helps them develop their own identity outside of the family role. Supporting their education and career aspirations is also crucial. They need to know that they have the freedom to follow their own path, even if it's different from caregiving or advocacy. Celebrating their individual identity, not just the role of a sibling, reassures them that they are valued for who they are. Even with family and peer support, siblings also struggle in silence. Therapy or counseling can provide a safe space for them to work through their emotions and develop healthy coping strategies. School counselors, therapists, or sibling support groups can offer guidance and a place where siblings can express their feelings without fear of judgment. Parents and educators can also help by normalizing seeking help. Therapy is not just for things when they're really bad. It's a tool for anyone who needs to be heard and understood. Siblings deserve care and attention too, just like their brother and sister. Now,
So hungry.
with all these support systems, research indicates that having a strong support system can significantly reduce emotional strain and improve outcomes for siblings. Programs aimed at supporting siblings have been shown to increase their resilience, communication skills, and sense of belonging. Now, for the past 5 or so minutes, I've been on and on and on about how to support siblings. And this is all great, but what are actual resources that anyone can get help for? Well, there are many in the sibling community. I decided to create my own. I have created Sibling Strong. Sibling Strong is a 501c3 nonprofit that drives to empower and connect Glass children with disabled siblings. Together, we can transform lives one heart at a time and create a world where every sibling feels cherished, valued, supported, regardless of the challenges they face. This Sibling Strong for me is my passion. I grew up with a sibling who had such a severe disability that I went through some of the deepest and darkest times of my life. I didn't feel any support for myself, and I was so stuck in a victim complex that one day I said, Abby, you have two choices. One, you can live this way forever and not realize all the strengths and challenges being a sibling with a disability has. Or two, you could realize them and use your experiences to help others. So that's what I did. I created Sibling Strong. And here, the four amazing, beautiful women that you see down the bottom, it's myself and my 3 team members. Myself, I'm the founder and director. We have Jaden, who is our social media coordinator. We have Charlie, who is our podcast co-hoster, and we have Nina, who is our outreach coordinator. And with this, I have created a team of empowered children who have disabled siblings that want to give back and be the role models they never had when they were growing up with their sibling. And it's just so empowering because we are all high school students so dedicated to making a change in this community. So what is Sibling Strong? So kind of our very formal definitions are, we envision a world where these children, teenagers and adults are not overlooked but embraced, where their voices are heard and their experiences are validated. Our goal is to create a sanctuary of understanding and support where these people can find strength and a sense of belonging. We believe that coming together as a community and as a society, we can create a ripple effect of kindness and empathy that will resonate far beyond our immediate circle and will reach all siblings. Through our nonprofit, we will provide resources, guidance, and a loving community where Glass children, children with well-being syndrome, and just siblings, children who have disabled siblings in general, can find comfort in knowing they're not alone. And so this is all the mission statements, it's all going in the right direction, but you can say all you want. What do we do? So Sibling Strong, for me, has transformed my whole outcome of my life. So it started out, giving you a little history, as me in freshman and sophomore year of high school. I am now a senior in high school, just using social media as an outlet for my frustration, my resentment, and all my feelings of having a sibling with a disability. I made quotes, I made like TikTok videos where I danced, and I just did all these ways to express myself and emotions. And for a while, for a couple of months, no one saw my videos. And I was feeling discouraged, but I said, if I have these feelings, other people must. So I kept being consistent and finally gained a pretty substantial platform. And from there, I started getting a bunch of siblings reaching out to me, wanting to be involved, and just hearing a lot of feedback in general from professionals and siblings. And kind of overnight, it transformed into 501c3 status. Honestly, it sounds really silly, but I really don't know how it happened. So in the beginning, Sibling Strong just focused on creating educational resources for siblings. But as I got into more understanding, I wanted to provide tangible physical resources for siblings to go directly to get help. So my first resource is monthly support groups for siblings. I moderate and run a support group for siblings aged 15 to 19, but it isn't a set age range. It can be a little bit older, a little bit younger, held on the second Tuesday of each month. And these are just a space where siblings can come together and just share emotions that in a sense of community and understanding. These have been so impactful in siblings that are struggling a little, but don't need the ability of support from therapy or from different external resources. Now, another resources that I have is that I actually write an information newsletter covering key concepts and current events relevant to sibling that comes out on the 19th of every month. So in a few days, when we'll come out again, just kind of detailing like throughout the month, articles I've read and just different things and knowledge that I've gained from doing research of the sibling experience. And I put it in all one document where people can have access to. And they don't have to do all the researching and all the searching for. And it also details current events and different times of what's going on within the Sibling Strong world. And the other thing that I do is I actually I started and I'm the co-host of an educational podcast called Sibling Stratos, where I interview either different siblings or different experts in the sibling community, like therapists and professionals, kind of giving practical informational advice to parents. And I've interviewed a spectrum from people from therapists to grief specialists to family therapists to behavioral specialists, just a bunch of different people who give feedback to parents and to siblings, just giving support and just validating sibling experiences. And also, as I've gone into the new year, I've really unlocked partnerships with larger organizations like CCA, the organization I have an internship with, and even the ARC of the United States, specifically the Northern Virginia and Loudoun sector, to develop a broader resource library for siblings. And like I mentioned before, I do still continue to consistently post engaging social media content across all platforms to educate society about the experiences of siblings. And if you want to have access to any of this information, go to Sibling Strong's website at www.siblingstrong.com. I just wanted to take a time to thank everyone for being here and listening to me speak about what I am truly so passionate about. When I think back 5 years ago, I could have never imagined myself being here having the confidence to talk about my experience and to why siblings need to feel empowered. I just want to thank everyone for taking time out of their evening for listening. And I wanted to open the floor for questions, thoughts, and concerns. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Abby. This is Terry Bullis from the Chad board. Hi, Pam. You popped on. I had a question for you, Abby. I'm going to turn on my video though, because we don't have it. I think that's an okay thing to do. My question was, do you feel like you've met people who are taking advantage of all the resources that you provide through Sibling Strong, whose siblings have disabilities that really aren't visible? They might be like emotional disabilities or disabilities that result in really unexpected behaviors, like in social situations. Do you have a lot of people who are taking advantage of your resources who might have those kinds of siblings with those kinds of disabilities?
I would say that there's definitely the majority of the siblings that I interact with and that seek support through Sibling Strong or ones that have siblings with intellectual disabilities and physical disabilities. I feel like with a lot of the intellectual disabilities and physical disabilities, there's like components of kind of like behaviors or different more invisible underlying things like you mentioned, but that's really not the primary um kind of route, I would say. I definitely want to expand and see more siblings that either their siblings have mental health challenges or different kind of behavioral challenges, because I think that would be super impactful, and that's not something that's super widely talked about. And specifically within this, I think there is a very certain stigma and stereotype within the sibling community that if you're a sibling and you're speaking out about getting help and getting support, that means that you have a lot of negative feelings towards your sibling, which is definitely not the case at all. So I feel like definitely when it comes into siblings seeking support for a disability or a challenge that is not physical, that stigma and stereotype definitely presents itself.
Yeah, I actually was wondering, and I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but I wondered if there's like this extra layer of challenge when the disability isn't visible, and then people really, people might worry that others are even more judgmental than when the disability is very apparent and obvious.
Yeah, I feel like I definitely understand and see where you're coming from. And I didn't really think about it too much from this perspective, but um I feel like with anything, like just speaking in a general term, having an invisible disability is challenging to families and specifically for siblings. I definitely see how it would be harder to recognize that you are a sibling, or you might be feeling like a glass child, or you may be feeling like all these different components and to get help.
I have a question. This is Cheryl. I'm on the board of CHAD. I met you earlier. My question is, say I'm a teenager and I'd like to join your support group. How would I do that?
So there's a few different ways. So first, probably the easiest way would be to get on the website, www.siblingstrong.com.net. And right there, there's a direct pop-up saying join sibling support group. It gives you the sign up, it gives you the Zoom link, it gives you all the dates for the next couple of months. Other than that, you can see kind of a very similar thing on Instagram and on Facebook, both accounts at sibling strong underscore. And usually about a week to 2 weeks before, and a few days before, we promote and have a flyer to the support group, just reminding you and letting you know that is in a few days. And within social media, if you see the Instagram post, there is a link in the caption to sign up and to receive the Zoom link.
Thank you.
Would somebody please read the chat? There is a really nice comment from a person.
I can read it.
Please.
Let me put on my video just a second. Abby, one of them said, "Great job, Abby." And the other one said, "Abby, my first time listening to you. Another mom shared tonight's information on your presentation. I'm so glad I hopped on to listen. I feel sibling resources are very few and far between. I'm a mom to 4 kiddos, 6 to 12, with a 10-year-old diagnosed with ASD at age 2. I listened to you and heard. As a mom, it's so hard to balance all the needs. I cried hard listening, but needed to hear this from you. Thank you." So I think a lot of parents who have watched tonight and who will be watching your recording in the time to come are going to really see what they can do to make their children's lives better. Karen, do you have a question?
I just wanted to make a comment. Hi, Abby. I am listening in from Texas. I am a pediatric occupational therapist, and I've known your family for a very long time. But I just wanted to say, as a professional working in the field, the work that you're doing is so very important. On my caseload, most of my kids that I see have siblings, and sometimes there's big behaviors that happen with the siblings who are trying to seek attention from the caregivers, just like you said. So I just wanted to congratulate you on the work that you're doing. For you being 18, you're very well spoken and just keep spreading the message. And I think that you're going to have a great future ahead of you. If you ever want support branching off to have a Sibling Strong meeting in Texas, I'm more than happy to help you do that. So great job, Abby.
Thank you so much.
We have another comment. Thank you for all you do and can't wait to continue to share your resources through my support groups and advocacy work. I don't know if that's the same person. How do I share this recording? The recording will be on our CHAD of Northern Virginia website.
Of course. And there's a transcript of all of the people who have put stuff in chat, so we can also supply that to you, Abby, if you want to respond. And I just want to say, like everyone else has said tonight, you've done an incredible job to share the siblings' perspective of a family who has been dealing with disabilities and what it means to that sibling, and in all sorts of ways. But the theme that you have put out more than anything else is love, respect, community, family. And that has been really the part that I have picked up from your lecture, and I really appreciate it. And it's beautiful and it's strong. And I really, we as the board of CHAD wish for you all the best in your endeavors to pursue, expanding on this community that you have developed. So thank you so much for your lecture tonight.